Hello, everybody. My name's John Miller. I'm from Ananda Development. First of all, I'd like to thank Kumbot and Bill Kwan for inviting us to speak here today. Like, absolutely fantastic event. We're delighted to be here. We're delighted to have worked with Bill and Kumbot over several years now. I mean, I think he's truly a pride of Thailand, one of Thailand's national treasures in how he's poster child for entrepreneurship and supporting the ecosystem here. So he asked me to talk a little bit about what is urban tech, because I think Ananda is well known for urban tech. And when he asked me, I said, sure, no problem. I've got a presentation for that. And then Wednesday night, I heard that you've got a 15-minute slot. So then I had a problem. How do I get a 1-hour presentation into a 15-minute slot? So I'm a problem solver, so I decided I'll delete half the slides and I'll speak twice as fast over the rest of them. So I'm apologizing in advance to those of you who aren't native English speakers. I'm going to be speaking quite fast because I've got a lot of slides to skip through quite quickly. But I do have pictures of dinosaurs and robots, so there'll be something interesting to look at anyway. So the topic is, what is urban tech? But before I start off, let me just mention about Ananda. We're getting to the point now where, before I used to ask if anybody has heard of Ananda. Now I ask, has everybody heard of Ananda? But 5 years ago, nobody had heard of Ananda. Because it's only 5 years since we IPO'd. It's only 5 years since we started executing on our strategy. But as of last year, 2017, just 4 years after the IPO, we'd gone from a tiny little company to by far the largest launcher of new condominiums in Thailand. And this is part of a larger growth spurt that we're on, where we're growing 10x in 7 years. And we're doing it with no new capital, and we're doing it while reducing our debt to equity ratio. Those of you in the finance industry will know this is supposed to be impossible. You can't grow a brick and mortar business, capital intensive brick and mortar business, 10x in 7 years with no new capital while reducing your debt to equity ratio. So how has Ananda managed to grow like a technology company? We believe the answer is because we handle technology like we handle innovation like a technology company. So here's a selection, just some of the innovations that Ananda's brought in 3 or 4 years after our IPO. I have an entire presentation about how corporations manage to innovate so much, but no time on that today. One of the things that's relevant for the construction industry, the audience specifically here, is that in the 3 years after the IPO, by bringing in various innovations, a whole range of them, we were able to reduce the time it takes us to build a building by almost half. We were able to increase the initial quality as measured by the consumer zero defect rate. We doubled it. And we did it at the same cost. I was just talking to Kumbot earlier this morning. We're introducing a new technology that's reducing another 15% of the time and reducing 10% of the cost. So I've been questioned before, oh, we're a brick and mortar business. It's not like a technology business. You can't disrupt. The advances aren't that fast. Well, here we are. 3 years, we managed to half the time double the quality. That's disruption in any market, and it's very possible in our market as well. But those aren't the numbers that we pay attention to at Ananda. Oh, we're number one in the market. Oh, we're growing 10x. This is the number we actually pay attention to. It's the fact that in 1935, the average age of a lifespan, or the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company was 90 years. By 2005, it had come down to 15 years. There's some evidence now, it's down to about 11 years. If you look at the Fortune 500 list from the year 2000, more than half of those companies no longer exist. So they, by definition, are the 500 companies that were the most successful, have the greatest resources, have the smartest people, have the greatest brands, have the greatest intellectual property, and they can't keep themselves alive more than 15 years because we're living in an age of disruption, and it's getting faster and faster. And that's what we pay attention to as a management team at Ananda, the fact that we live in a world where every business and every industry is getting disrupted. We live in a world where the largest taxi company owns no vehicles, the most popular media company produces no content, the most valuable retailers no inventory, and the world's largest accommodation provider owns no real estate. Everything we thought we knew is changing. We all know about Uber, Tesla, all this ride sharing. The nature of ownership itself is changing. What it means to own things, We talk about, at Ananda, we talk about moving towards life as a service. So as ownership patterns change, we have to change as a business. Even in things like office, we've got things like WeWork, we use Cisco technology that reduces the need for real estate by about half. Massive disruption coming. We've played around with this technology. We invited the company to see us, this one called eHang. But we have these autonomous passenger drones. They're being deployed in Dubai. They're getting licensed in some US cities. So what does construction mean? What does development mean? What does real estate mean when you have a city that's vertical in terms of transportation as well as horizontal? Finance is changing. How people invest in real estate is changing. Crowdfunding of real estate development is changing. Are the banks being bypassed? Are the public markets being bypassed? There are all kinds of new competitors and new suppliers coming along to us. How consumers get financing for your products if you're in real estate is changing itself. Things like, this is the very famous study, how many jobs are vulnerable to automation? Who are we going to sell to if nobody has a job? Our business model at Ananda, this is a slowly moving slide, but I don't have time for this one today, but we believe that things like a change in the cost of transportation, location is a function of mobility. People pay a premium to live close to something. That premium will change if mobility changes. So at Ananda, we're wondering, are we already a dinosaur because of some technological changes that have taken place somewhere else and we don't even know it yet? And then there's a bigger change going on. These statistics show that in the next 30 years, as a species, we're going to try and move more people into an urban environment than we have in all of human history before. And this is important because urbanization historically has been very bad for the human animal. When we first started urbanizing, the average height of a man fell from 5'9" to 5'3". Average lifespan fell by a couple of decades. So whenever we have a wave of urbanization, people get shorter, they get sicker, and they have shorter lives. So urbanization is generally very bad. The same thing happened again when Europe urbanized. In the Industrial Revolution, people got smaller, sicker, and their lives got shorter. And we're about to try and move more people into an urban environment in the next 30 years than we have in all of human history before. This is one of the biggest challenges our species has ever faced. And just to remind everybody, what does exponential growth look like? This is what we're trying to do. This is the environment that we live in, the world that we live in. So I'm thinking, why, when we've got one of the greatest challenges in our species history, why is nobody talking about this? And the answer is, you can see where the population is, and the picture on the left, the lighter colors, are the less urbanized areas. So what this tells you is that all of this urbanization is taking place in our neighborhood. So the reason why nobody's talking about it is because none of it's happening in America, none of it's happening in Europe, none of it's happening in Japan. Almost all of it is happening within 5 hours of where we're sitting right now. And you can see in Southeast Asia specifically, it's one of the least urbanized countries in the world. Thailand itself, only 50% urbanized. To put this into context, China is already 65% urbanized. Here in Thailand, a collection of the least urbanized countries. So this urbanization is taking place in our neighborhood. So if we don't get it right, is this our future? Is this our future? Is this what we'll have to live with? Is this the world that we're creating? Is this our future? So what gives us hope that we can do something else is that at the same time we have this enormous disruption in how people live, this enormous wave of urbanization, we have these disruptive changes, what they call the fourth industrial revolution or the technology singularities, exponential changes in a whole range of technologies that are happening at the same time. These are going to lead to things like smart cities. And all these different technology trends happening at the same time can completely disrupt and change the way cities operate, from managed fleets, sensor networks, transport networks. Here's just one example. We brought over this guy, Anthony Vanke from MIT, to come and talk to us and talk to the ecosystem. And he gave one example of what you can do with various technologies, just with lampposts. Because lampposts, they are where the people are, they're physical infrastructure, and they've got power. So you can do all kinds of things with them. And here's just some of the ideas. Sensors, communication, management, all kinds of things. And these are all coming because the technology gets so cheap and so available. And for those of us in the construction industry, the opportunities are massive. You look here, only agriculture and hunting is less digitized than construction. So the greatest opportunity of any business sector to take advantage of all of these is in the construction. So all these technology trends lead to time here is saying by 2045 we'll all be immortal. But of course, not everybody's so optimistic about what this technology is going to lead to. How we handle it is the key thing. So Ananda, we call ourselves Urban Living Solution. Urban Tech is what allows us to deliver these urban living solutions. So what is urban tech? That's what I was asked at the beginning. Urban tech is all these technologies, but it's more than that. We, all of us here, are very privileged to be living at this time, in this place, in this industry. Because we have the opportunity as human beings over our working life to have an impact on the quality of life of billions of people for centuries to come. So how we use all these technologies, how we deploy them, that's what urban tech is. It's the greatest opportunity in history to benefit the greatest number of human beings. Okay, thank you.